Introduce my colleague who's getting an urgent call, Chris Stiles, in the city manager's office. And so thank you, and particularly the governor, for the announcement of the transportation dollars we're getting for the banks. It's going to be a tremendous help to us to get that project going and to have it end up where it needs to be. And I was telling Chris driving over here, I was telling Chris when I was driving over here, I was raised Lutheran and my wife was raised Catholic, and a few years ago we sort of stumbled on to Calvary Episcopal in Clifton, and we ended up getting married there, and our 2 kids were baptized there. So I think technically, I guess I'm sort of an Episcopalian right now. I'm not sure. I had the privilege last week of being invited to the White House for a briefing with the Vice President through the U.S. Conference of Mayors, National League of Cities, National Association of Counties, and the International City Managers Association. And the Vice President spoke to us for about 20 minutes, and I would characterize his comment, it was sort of Recovery Act coordinators from major cities from around the country who were there. And I would say, I broke his speech down into 2 parts. The first part of it was sort of cheerleading us to say, you know, the American people are depending on us to do this right. This is an enormous amount of money. It's a Herculean task that we're about to undergo. And to Bill's comments earlier about oversight and transparency, what we're talking about doing here today is really unprecedented in the way the federal government has done this. They're putting everything on recovery.gov. Everything is there for everybody to look at. The timelines are going to be out there. So it's great that there's all this transparency. The double edge of the sword, though, is that there's going to be all this transparency. And the second half of his speech was, we only have one chance to get this right. This program, something like this may not ever come around again in our lifetime, at least in my lifetime. We have to do it right. And he sort of looked all of us in the eyes and said, every project you do, I want it done on time, within all the guidelines of what you're doing. And I want every project, if it appears in the front page of your newspaper, to be able to pass the smell test. And if it doesn't, if it's not done the right way, if it's a bridge to nowhere, or he specifically cited skateboard parks and other things that might not pass the test with the American public, he said, I will come to your city, I will shine the spotlight on you, and I will call you out. And so we're all sitting there thinking, okay, it's not going to be in Cincinnati. I'm going to make sure I'm covered from my end.
Is that so?
I'm going to do my best. I don't want him to come to Cincinnati. Anyway, so this whole, to Bill's point about oversight, it's going to be critical because everything will be on there. And if it's not done right, you all will be able to look at the site and see what's going on, and you'll be able to talk about it. So it's really important from that perspective. I think as was also mentioned, $787 billion, that's with a B. As I understand it, about 2/3 of it is going to be going for spending for construction projects and other things, and about 1/3 of it for tax cut programs. The staff at part of what we also did was receive briefings from senior administration staff from all the cabinet departments in the federal government. And I can tell you, to a person, they are working triple overtime trying to figure this out. Because here you've got all this money going out the door. The president has said you've got to get it out quickly, you've got to spend it quickly. The whole point is to try and jumpstart the economy, get people employed, that sort of thing. On the other hand, they want to make sure that there's the proper oversight in place, that the proper controls are in place, so that cities are spending it the right way. And so there's a lot of concern with doing it right. And as Brewster said, there's things like, there's different formulas for how this money is going out. There's formula money that's sort of doled out by population or various analytical statistics that they're using. And then there's all this competitive or discretionary money that they're handing out. But to even complicate how they're deciding how to spend this money, there's all these competing interests. And, we've got things like the Davis-Bacon Act, which sort of outlines how you use pay prevailing wages when you're doing projects using federal dollars on federal projects. Now, with the city of Cincinnati, when we work through Davis-Bacon, we have a whole number of contract compliance issues, bidding issues that we have to get out. Now, the cities around the country were all very nervous about what those guidelines are going to be, so that the last thing we want to do, we know we've got to comply with Davis-Bacon, we know we've got our procedures, but we're also worried about how quickly they want us to get all this done and to make sure that we can comply. So there's some real compliance concerns. There's a whole provision in the Recovery Act about Buy America, that when we're building and contracting, doing stuff, that we're buying American products. So a lot of times when we're putting out bids, we're looking for the best prices in some cases. If it's not made in America, how do we manage that? How are they going to be looking at that? So that's another key thing that was really on the minds of cities around the country about how do we figure that all out. On one hand, we want to use the money the most wisely,